Right, YouTube, two things before this video starts. Number one, I want to get to know you guys better. So please follow the Instagram. It is kind of like a personal one. Link is in the description. Just DM me, you're from the crime channel, and I'll follow you back. And secondly, I don't know why, but these YouTube morons didn't monetize this video. It's not even a crime story. So I've edited it in a way which it is monetized, but it's not as good as my other videos. So keep that in mind. I've tried to make it as engaging as possible. Thank you so much. Now let's get to the video. Right, YouTube, today's my birthday, so I figured I'd make you a video that's a little bit different, more light-hearted, make it fun, bunch of jokes. I'm going to discuss with you Love Has Won, who was some kind of spiritual sect cult coming out of Colorado. Sect, S-E-C-T, not S-E-X, dirty bastard. But the reason why this story is of prominence is that it's just as weird and bizarre as some of the crime stories, you know, that we talk about. But recently their leader, their divine being, Amy Carlson, died at the age of 45. So I want to explore their group, tell you about it, and just have a discussion about how people like David Koresh and you know, Amy Carlson and these other charlatans who use religion, divine inspiration to, you know, further their agenda. Now, Friedrich Nietzsche, he said that God is dead. Well, according to Love Has Won, God is now ascended up to heaven in a world full of love and entertainment. See, according to Love Has Won, Amy Carlson was God. Right, two things I want to say though before I continue. Number one, they changed their name to 5D Full Disclosure, which when I first heard this name, I thought it was like a new strip club somewhere. Secondly, I know you guys have heard of Love Has Won, and you've probably seen thumbnails and videos, right? There are far bigger creators than me who've covered that subject. But you know what none of them have done? And you know, here on this channel, we keep it real. We don't hold anything back. You know what none of them have done? They've told you the story. They've told you the process. They've told you the what. But what they haven't figured out is the how and the why. That's the point. I'm going to tell you why all this shit happened. So we start on April 28th, 2021 in Salida, Colorado. A guy by the name of Miguel Lamboy, he goes to the police and he says, by the way, there's a body in my house and it's the mummified corpse of Amy Carlson. Now, Mr. Lamboy wasn't involved. He was away in Denver, Colorado, to which he came home and he sees this random body in his house because, you know, that happens every day. Now, while the police were there, 7 of Amy's followers were there too. And eventually the police hit them with the gag order. Now, I don't know what a gag order was prior to me first learning about it, but at first I thought it was something naughty. But the police eventually charged these followers. They gave him this order for abuse of a corpse and child abuse because there were children present too. Now, we're going to look at Amy Carlson before we get to Love Has Won. Amy Carlson was actually a manager at a McDonald's. And in hindsight, if God worked at McDonald's, how did the Garden of Eden look? Now, when interviewing some of her followers, they said that Amy loved sriracha, which is hilarious. She loved playing games on her mobile phone, and she was inspired by the late Robin Williams. And I think to myself, I can't think of 3 more random attributes. If you're some divine being, show me you can fly. Make me a better burger than Chick-fil-A. I don't know, but sriracha? Now, what's even more bizarre is her followers went on to say that they believed she had lived for billions of years and over 500 lives. And I thought, is she a video game? Now, this shit gets funnier. Amy told her followers that her mission on Earth was to stop an intergalactic cabal from coming in and stealing the resources. Like, imagine that. You travel to different planets and you're like, oh, target, is that all you have? She talks about Sumerians and Anunnaki and aliens and other beings and all this hodgepodge of shit that we've heard over the years, over and over again. It's the same regurgitated conspiratorial crap. Why? Because she just wanted control, because she couldn't get it anywhere else in her life. Now, according to their YouTube videos, Amy was Cleopatra, Jesus Christ, and Marilyn Monroe at different times. She claimed that she was the queen of some ancient city called Lumeria or something, and that Donald Trump was her father. Now, they didn't necessarily believe in like an afterlife as you get in conventional religions, but Amy told them that at some point she will enter a spaceship or she'll go through some portal in the ocean. Because like I said, she's playing a video game. Now, over time, Love Has Won built their base and they had a few dozen people that lived with them. And online, they had like a core community of followers, you know, on Facebook and all these other social media platforms. These followers were known as ambassadors, or as I call them, morons. And of course, these morons came from all around the world: Australia, South Africa, Britain, Europe, Antarctica, maybe even Krypton. Now, as I mentioned, Amy died of anorexia, and according to Love As One, or 5D as they call themselves, but according to them, all the world's pains, all the world's issues, all the problems that have been caused to the world by us human beings, Amy is the one that took on that burden. You know how they say the sins of Christ? Right? Similar concept, where the sins of man have been taken on by one person. So Amy, you're saying, when I ask myself what part of the buffalo is the chicken wing, you're saying that sin, I'm now exempt? I mean, it got to the point where, maybe not now, but at the time of when Amy was alive, her followers believed that if she died, the world would die, because of course she was the world. Now, initially, Amy was just a country girl. She grew up in Wichita, Kansas. Now, what's even more interesting here, though, is when you look at Amy's life, her teenage life, she's no different than any other teenager. She loved unicorns. She had a colorful bedroom, you know, very much in the female aesthetics, right? Like, girls have specific likes and dislikes for their rooms, and, you know, us men just like to have our room messy, right? She lived a brilliant life moving from Dallas and Houston and other places. She lived a wonderful middle-class life as she got older. There was nothing in her life that ever indicated any kind of, you know, troubles. But of course, everybody can talk bullshit if they wanted to. And Amy was telling her followers that her calling in life, even though she realized it as she got older, really started from the beginning. Amy claimed that when she was 4 or 5 years old, she was talking to angels, she was talking to animals, and she was talking to many other spirits. In fact, there's one story where when she was young, the parents take her to church, the pastor is giving his sermon or wherever it is, and Amy shouts out, "You lie! You're a liar!" And of course, because she is Jesus, she's telling the truth. Again, this is all stories Amy told her congregation, if you like. And by the time she was 20, she had 3 kids. She had been married and divorced once. Like I said, everything in her life indicated she would just be another normal woman. Now, in the mid-2000s, Amy began to practice New Age spiritualism, and that's completely fine. But through this new religion, I guess it's not the right word, but you know what I mean, she came across a man who later would become Father God to her Mother God in her cult. This man went by the internet pseudonym Amarith White Eagle, or as I would call him, an even bigger moron. And it was here, upon this relationship that she built, that she started telling people for the first time in her life of her, you know, otherworldly phenomenon, that she was some, you know, godlike figure. And on a social media post in September 2007, she claimed that one day she would become president of the United States. And to be fair to her, there hasn't been a female yet, so who knows. And don't forget, during this time she's still married, but the more and more she got to know this White Eagle fella online, she realized that her life was beginning to take a turn, and she referred to White Eagle as her twin flame. Now, according to Amy, with the husband and the kids, she was living a 3D life. Well, no shit, Sherlock. And I guess it makes sense why the group is now called 5D, but this is when she realized she's gonna leave, she's gonna move to the mountains with her mountain god, this White Eagle fella, and she's gonna live a new life. And then she started creating video content online, referring to herself as the Galactic Free Press. Like when Gutenberg invented the printing press, I'm sure right now he'd be ashamed. Now eventually, as time went on, Amy and this White Eagle fella split, and instead of her being a supporting cast in this mindfuck of a situation, she decides, I'm now going to claim myself to be a deity. This is where Amy meets Miguel Lamboy, you know, the guy from the beginning. He ends up becoming, in her group, the Archangel Michael Silver. I wonder where they get these names from. Did they go into like a bullshit name generator or something? And at this point, Amy is living in a forest home with Lamboy with her. Lamboy is the one controlling all the cameras and doing the setup, and Amy is the one talking, you know, in her bullshit videos. And this is where we come to the how. Right, I know I rambled on, but I wanted to give you an intro, and if you already knew that stuff, forgive me. How was Amy, this McDonald's restaurant manager, able to fool so many people? Well, we need to look at the profile of the people that followed her. You start with Michael. Michael at the time was 35 years old, but he suffered from lung disease. You see, if you have an agenda, whether it be political or religious or spiritual or whatever it is, if you have an agenda, first thing you need to set yourself is a goal. What is your goal? Like for me on YouTube, my goal? Get some clout. But for Amy, her goal was power. It was attention. It was appreciation. It was people looking at her and saying, oh, adoring her, worshipping her, revering her. That's what Amy wanted. So, how did you get that? Because nobody's going to give it to you. Everybody wants to be revered. So what made Amy special? Well, the first thing you do is you come up with a message. That message in her case was, I am God. I'm here to save the world. I'm a divine being. Well, let's take that seriously for a second. It's a fucking joke, I know, but let's take it seriously for a second. If anyone claims to be divine, then they must have something about them that is outside of this reality. Now, to do something out of this reality, we're talking about an act of impossibility. So if I was to walk on water, for example, you'd be like, oh shit, what's this? If I was to randomly start flying, you'd be like, wait, what? This is an act of impossibility. And I do acknowledge impossibility is subjective to time. Like 300 years ago, it was impossible to drive a car. Today, it's impossible to walk on water. Maybe in the future we can, I don't know, but you understand what I'm saying. So if you're going to claim that you're from the creator of the world, or you are the creator of the world, or some divine foreign alien entity has sent you, then you need to prove your claims. In religious terms, these claims are proven. Jesus healing the sick. And again, healing the sick is not miraculous, but back then it was. The Prophet Muhammad in Islam, he was able to bring a book that was the perfect manifestation of the Arabic language at a time, in a place where nobody could read or write. I'm just using religious text just to give you a context, just to give you an idea. Again, if you don't believe in it, it's okay. It's all about the concept. So what was miraculous about Amy? What, McDonald's certainly had the best burgers in this galaxy? Bro, I've been to McDonald's many times. They're shit. Five Guys, so much better. And this is why I say charlatan. But this is why she targeted the weak. Now, if you look at Amy, she looks like any other American woman, right? Someone you'd see walking down the street. But you have to truly understand the sinister, sick nature of who she was, knowingly fooling the most vulnerable. Because if you have a message and if you claim to be divine, who's gonna believe you? You know who? The disenfranchised. Understand what that means. If you're disenfranchised, it doesn't mean you're poor. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It means you don't really have a purpose. And if somebody comes along, accepts you for who you are, gives you a purpose, gives you a place. If somebody makes you feel like you are worth something, then you might just start listening to that person. See, the most vulnerable in society are always the ones that are attracted first to, bullshit. Whether it be Adolf Hitler or whether it be Al-Qaeda or all these crazy people, they first, to gain support, they look at the most vulnerable in society. They look at the most angered in society. And once you get support and your message spreads, who knows where it can go. It's a tried and tested method throughout the ages. But Amy did this consciously. You can't claim to be divine, right? You can't claim to be this inspirational being, get married and then leave your husband and kids to do all of this purely based on a mental illness. No, I'm not buying that. You're doing this because this is what you wanted. You're doing this because you need a special level of attention that, you couldn't get anywhere else. And you are willing to fool people into thinking you're God. And this is what Friedrich Nietzsche said. I go back to it. People always talk about he said God is dead. What they don't realize is keep reading the paragraph. Because Nietzsche goes on to say, God is dead, yes. But if we get rid of the idea of God, we'll make ourselves God. You want to see an example of that? Look at all the girls crying over Justin Bieber. If that's not an act of worship, I don't know what is. Again, I'm not trying to give you a religious conversation. I'm trying to put it all into context of the true sinister nature of Amy. Now, what led to the decline of this group was that Amy met her second father god, her second twin flame, Jason Castillo, in 2018. Now, Castillo did look like a Jesus-like figure, which is purely coincidental, but all of a sudden he randomly started appearing in their videos and he was able to do whatever he wanted to. He didn't always have to wear a shirt, he had long hair, and Amy was smitten by him. What Amy never told her followers is that this guy Jason had the exact same life as Amy. If you were to put them on two different timescales, they were always going to meet, because Jason himself had a wife for 20 years, had kids, but then he became disillusioned and he started taking drugs, crystal meth. In fact, Jason went on to refer to that family as his 3D family. Again, 2D wasn't good enough. And it was in 2013 when Jason took an interest into, Amy and her message and started to consume her online content. Jason ultimately led to the downfall of Amy because the more she got to know him, the more and more she started drinking and her body started deteriorating. And as I mentioned, eventually she died of anorexia. And the reason why I made this video and why I found this story interesting and compelling to a degree is because of the audacity of it. It's an audacious claim. If you're going to claim to be from God or from this other dimension, right, that itself is a huge claim. In fact, you can argue it's the biggest claim anyone can make. There are books in this world that say rah, 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 rah from God, and millions of people dispute their authenticity because, again, to say you are God or from God is the biggest claim anyone can make. But for Amy, this claim was fair sacrifice in getting what she wanted. Incredibly selfish of her. Her upbringing was completely fine. Her parents may have separated, but that is normal in today's society. She was never abused. There was no substance abuse as a kid. There was no child abuse or reported child abuse anyway. There wasn't a case where she was experiencing severe financial hardship. Her husband, by all accounts, was a good man. Never hit her, never abused her. There's no indication of any kind of domestic violence in her life. And as far as her kids are concerned, they never were in any trouble while she was still with them. So for her to up and leave and then decide, you know what, I'm going to start thinking about myself, that in itself is as big a crime as creating this fake persona, because she abandoned her husband and she abandoned her kids, all in the name of attention. And that's why she did it. She wanted recognition for her work. You know, recognition is a normal thing. The kids love playing video games because they want recognition for their work. People love creating because it's stimulating for their mind, and then they want recognition. Whether it be a college degree, or you end up making an item of clothing, or you fix someone's car if you're a mechanic, right? When you say thank you, when you say you're welcome, when you say, hey, look what I've done, these are all acts of recognition. I think the key to this conversation is, what are you willing to do to be recognized? My recognition has been, for the last 3 years, understand this content creation game and then just start expressing myself. Your recognition could be that you go to work and you get your promotion, and then other people be like, hey, congratulations. But Amy's recognition, let me fool people into thinking that I am God, because I'm arrogant. My ego is that big, but I have such a big void that this grandstanding claim is the only way I can be happy in life. Look at the videos. Who do you think you are? See, I know this was a bizarre story, but this shit made me angry. It made me angry because it's like, if I see someone vulnerable, if I see someone less fortunate, if I see someone who's in pain or who's not doing okay, my thought isn't, how can I exploit them? My thought is not, okay, what can I get out of them? My thought is either, I'm sorry, how can I help? Or just let that person be. Amy was a charlatan. And I hope in this world of love and entertainment, she sees this video and I say,